uh, Future Capital Workshop. And I have the pleasure and the honor to introduce Lawrence Ford. For some of you that do not know, Lawrence is the chairman of Future Capital. He is the CEO and founder of Conscious Capital Wealth Management, where we help people invest with purpose. So Lawrence, I'm going to not waste any more time. I'm going to pass it right over to you.
Excellent. Thank you. And good morning and good afternoon and good evening, everybody, depending on where you are. I want to first say that, in the world of Zoomness, that everybody, it's been such a blessing for us to have this during this crazy pandemic. And at the same time, for most of us, I think we've found so many, like a big box of chocolates and don't know which ones to choose, and sometimes get a little bit of a sugar high on Zoomness and a little overwhelming. So I do want to take a moment to appreciate everybody for your attention, which is quite precious, and being here with us today. And we've got a real treat in store for you with Tim Kelley, who's been a dear friend and a help to us as we've continued on our mission with Future Capital in multiple ways on our own purpose. So just for those of you, I see a lot of fabulous, beautiful faces from all around the world. Some new, some have been here from the beginning. I will say to you, just as a quick introduction about what Future Capital is all about, it was born out of this concept, which certainly was not our concept, and it's a pretty obvious one when you state it. But the two most powerful tools that our species possess is our consciousness. We can use many different terms to express that, but everything we think before we manifest it out into the world, into action and into being. And this thing called capital that has many forms, not the least of which is the financial capital in the world. And those are our two most powerful tools out there that our species possess. And if we need to make change at the speed and transformation at the speed that we are looking to do at this critical time for our species, it's a good idea to get those two in the same room at the same time. And then on top of that, you can see quite a diverse group here. We don't want to just come from a private banking perspective or a public perspective. The idea was to make sure that we brought in a true diversity of a multi-stakeholder approach, because if we are going to solve this problem, then we need to do it from a different consciousness that created it, to steal a term from someone quite famous and a lot smarter than myself. So I will hand this off to Patty, who's going to introduce Tim, and enjoy the next 90 minutes.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. So first is our Future Capital Workshop series that we started this year in 2021. And the reason we started this particular series is because our attention, our consciousness, as Lawrence pointed out, is so important. But it's important not because it's so valuable, which it is, but because it's so powerful.
Patty, you're muted. Try it one more time, Patty. There you go.
Okay. Okay. All right. So our attention shapes the reality of our moment-to-moment experience of life, and it shapes our way of being and our behavior. So this is why we devote every other month to workshops to explore different aspects of our attention. The choices we make individually will have an impact, not only on our own well-being, but like a butterfly effect, we each change the world every day in how we pay attention. So thank you so much for joining. I am really thrilled that Tim is doing this workshop for us today. You know, many leaders are inspired by conscious capitalism and the need for a regenerative and sustainable business model that works for all life. And, you know, we want to lead the way for a new way of doing business, but most of us are unsure how to actually do that. And Tim Kelley is the founder and visionary leader of the True Purpose Institute. He works with top leaders in many fields and countries that are called to operate in a new way and create a new world to redesign and evolve society. Tim's purpose is to help individuals and organizations transform into a new paradigm leader, one who models for others what the future of leadership will look like. Tim has trained over 1,000 consultants, therapists, and coaches in his methods. He's the author of the book, True Purpose, and also Tim is one of the only 7 certified conscious capitalism consultants. He also helps organizations clarify and manifest their higher purpose, their vision, and their core values in a way that contributes to the bottom line, their employees, and the world. Tim's client list includes top leaders and executive teams from such companies as Alibaba, ING, Oracle, Accenture, Nabisco, etc. And he has worked with government ministers and presidential candidates and found the higher purpose of 2 countries. So without further comment, I would love to introduce you to Tim Kelley and open up our workshop. Over to you, Tim.
Thank you so much, Patty. Delighted to be here. I'm really enjoying looking at the faces of the people here and hearing the voices of the folks who've shown up, because I know some of the folks here that you guys from Future Capital don't know. So we have representation here not only from Future Capital and the True Purpose Institute, but also the Barrett Values Center. We have some conscious capitalism folks here. We've got a really lovely mix of people. And so I want to say just a little bit more about Future Capital, because I'm a big purpose geek, but this idea of purpose and money is something I've been very interested in for years now. And I was looking for where could we do something with purpose and money? Where can we transform money, because it desperately needs some work if we're going to redesign and evolve society. And I was so happy when Nalima Bhatt introduced me to Future Capital. So for those of you who don't know these folks, these are people who are right in the belly of the beast and have been doing investment and wealth management and real very heavy duty money stuff, and have the backing of the UN. These folks are very serious about consciousness and very serious about money and capital. And so you're all lucky to get to know them. And so by all means, keep coming to these events. Patty will be offering a workshop in a few months, for example. So there's going to be other cool consciousness stuff coming. So get on their mailing list and keep coming back, because there's more cool stuff coming. So I just wanted to say, because this is the perfect place to offer this workshop about this intersection of purpose and money. So what we're going to be doing today, I'm going to be talking some at the beginning to kind of create some context and tee this up. And I encourage you, as I say things that prompt ideas and stuff like that, go ahead and write stuff in the chat, right? Often there's a kind of a one workshop happening on the screen, and then there's another workshop happening in the chat. And I think that's great. It's a lovely feature of our modern group technology that we're all living with now. So by all means, just keep the chat running. We are going to have several exercises during this. So I know Peter Paul Leutcher from the Netherlands is driving, and Laszlo Karafiath is on his bike right now. So I'll give you guys some time to get where you're going, and then we're going to do some writing exercises. So I don't want you to be writing while you're biking or driving. And there'll be a chance to debrief in small groups as well, so you can get to know some of the other very, very cool people who are on this call. So this is a workshop-y type thing, not just a presentation type thing. And those of you who know me know I love to throw people into exercises and small groups and stuff like that, because that's where a lot of the fun happens, is when you're doing the work yourself. Let me think if there's anything else I want to say by way of context. I think that's pretty much it. I think that's kind of the overview there. So we'll dive in. I'm going to start by talking some about money and its role in society. It's one of those things that we use all the time and don't take the time to think about very often. And it's important to think about where money came from and where we got where we are with it if we want to transform it. Now, I'm using the word money. The Future Capital folks use the word capital, and they mean something broader than money in that. They mean financial capital and other forms of capital, which I think is a good thing. But today we're focusing on the financial aspect of it. We're focusing specifically on the money aspect of it, because in many ways, when we're talking about transforming society, the money aspect of it is the pain point. So money didn't always exist. We didn't always have money. We used to do trade and barter. And if you had a stone tool that I wanted and I had some chickens that you wanted, we could agree on how many chickens were worth a stone tool, and I would give you the chickens for the stone tool. And that worked great, except if I needed a stone tool and you didn't need any chickens, then we had a problem. Even though you might agree that chickens have value, you just happen to not need chickens. Now we need to find someone else has something that you want that wants my stone tool or whatever. So it got more complicated, and this eventually got replaced by some sort of generalized medium of exchange. In order to be a generalized medium of exchange, something had to have general perceived value that everybody in a society or culture agreed that, yeah, that particular thing has value, and therefore we can use that as an intermediary in any barter. And lots of different things serve that function. So we all know of metals doing that, right? Coins, precious metals, these sorts of things. Many cultures use those, but there are other things people don't really think about. Like, for example, in Siberia, blocks of tea were used as money, as a medium of exchange. In the Roman Empire, it was salt. There was a time when salt was fairly hard to come by. And the word salary in English comes from the root sal, sal. Sal to this day in Spanish, for example, means salt. So salary was the salt that the Roman soldiers were paid for their work. And that went on for a very long time, with different cultures having different mediums of exchange that were agreed upon. And it got interesting when two different cultures wanted to trade stuff back and forth. But we've gotten in the last few hundred years pretty abstract with it, beginning with paper money, where it didn't have any inherent value of itself. Some entity like a government or something agreed that you could exchange the paper money, say, for gold. And that's what the gold in Fort Knox was for, was until I think it was the 1930s, you could exchange a certain number of dollars for gold, and it was the gold that was backing up the dollars. And then we took the interesting step of saying, well, you can't actually exchange it for gold anymore. But, and this was, I think, during the oil crisis in the 1970s that this happened, where they said, oh, we're gonna disconnect it from the gold thing, and you're just gonna have to trust us that it's worth something. And now, of course, we have many different currencies, many of them by different governments, but also non-governmental currencies, cryptocurrencies, for example. But also there have been things like in the Berkshires, and other local currencies that have been created as experiments, and some of them have done well and been around for years. And that seems like that's likely to increase. And much of the money supply is now bits and computers, so it's become even more abstract. And this leads us to this interesting situation where we're highly dependent on this thing that in some ways has become less real and more distant from its roots. So the thing I want to emphasize in this sort of ongoing transition to more and more abstract forms of money, actually, one of my favorite examples is the cryptocurrency, the Dogecoin, which was issued basically because it has the same name as this cool dog that was a meme on the internet. And Dogecoin, the dog died apparently, but the Dogecoin is still worth money, and you can trade Dogecoins as cryptocurrencies. That's a really good example of a highly abstracted form of currency. Fundamentally, what I want you to take from this little kind of very mild history lesson, which a real historian could correct me on several points, I'm sure, is that money has no inherent value beyond the value we ascribe to it. And money has no existence beyond the existence we ascribe to it. It is entirely artificial and constructed. It didn't exist until we created it. And that's going to be important later, right? The idea that it itself isn't really all that real. And to the extent it is, it's because we made it real and we've decided that it's real and we treat it as if it's real. Especially true of things like cryptocurrencies or bits in computers, where we just agree that that has a certain value. The reason that's important is because people have a lot of negative stuff to say about money, and money gets a real bad rap. And what I would say is that that's unfair. Because we created money, it's difficult to blame it for anything. We made it. So anything bad that it's doing is our fault. Anything that doesn't work about it doesn't work because we made it that way. And that's the key point I want you to take away from it at this point, is that money itself barely exists and only exists because of us. And anything that works or doesn't work about it works or doesn't work because we made it the way it is. So park that one for the moment. The next concept has to do with money's role in society. So we use money for a lot of different things right now. It's what they would call in construction a load-bearing wall. So in a house, there are walls that are decorative that just separate rooms, and there are other walls that are holding up the ceiling or the floor above. And so if you're doing construction, it's important to know which kind of wall you're dealing with. Because if it's a decorative wall, you can just take a sledgehammer and bang it out and open up the room or whatever. It's actually down the hall here, the dining room used to be shielded off from the hallway by a wall, but it wasn't a load-bearing wall, so they just removed the wall. Now the dining room's open to the hallway in my house. But if it were holding up the rest of the house, that would be a bad idea. If we pulled that wall out, then the rest of the house might collapse on us. It would be a problem. So I would argue that money is a load-bearing wall in society, meaning that society's functioning is dependent, not entirely, but dependent in part on money. And if you yanked money out of society right now, society would have difficulty functioning. It would be like pulling out the axle in a car or something like that. It's something pretty important. You could remove the back seat from a car and the car would still work, but if you removed one of the axles, it wouldn't drive very well. So if we can't remove it or remove it easily, that brings up an important point, because a lot of folks that I run into who are big on transforming society and want to create a better world like to conceive of a society without money. And they come up with different visions of how society could work without money in it at all. And I would say that that's not actually a terribly useful exercise. And the reason is that if you're going to try to design a society without money, you're going to have to do a lot of work to come up with some other way of performing all the functions that money performs. And I think it's much easier to transform money, or more properly, transform our relationship to money, than it is to try to conceive of and implement an entire society that's not dependent on money. I actually took, along with some folks here, a workshop about money. I guess it was about a year ago. And after the workshop, we had some interesting follow-on conversations. And there were some people who had this really interesting vision of a completely different way of relating to money in society. And it was quite radical. And I asked them point blank, I said, well, how long do you think it will take to implement that? And the answer was about 1,000 years. And my interest level in this particular transformation went down considerably when I heard that answer, because I don't want to have to wait 1,000 years for us to redesign society, to have a new paradigm society or heaven on earth or a world that works for everyone, or whatever term you want to use for it. I'd like to see that in something more like 20 years or 50 years or 100 years on the outside. 1,000 is way too long for me. I don't think I'm going to live that long. So trying to get rid of money delays the implementation of what I think of as heaven on earth. Transforming money, or transforming our relationship to money, is much, much faster and easier. And so that's what I want to focus on in this workshop, is our relationship to money. And the idea goes like this, right? There's my relationship to money and your relationship to money, which aren't the same. There's our relationship to money, which is kind of interconnected, right? Then there's how money functions. And then there's how can we transform my relationship to money, your relationship to money, our relationship to money, and how money functions. And transform it into what? And we're not necessarily going to get to that today. We could get a little start on it. That would be a good thing for a future collective activity, is really looking at the higher purpose of money or a vision for money at a collective level. That could be a fun project for us to do here through Future Capital, would be to get a collective idea of what the higher purpose of money is and make that something that is generally known. That would be an interesting intervention into society's relationship with money. For now, we're going to deal with your relationship to money, my relationship to money, our relationship to money. And when we can get clear on that, then we start to be in a position to, what I would say that the long game would be to create a vision of how we would relate to money, a vision of how money would operate, and then how do we implement that vision? That's the longer game. Not going to get to all of that today. Might take a little bit longer. Cool. So there's already efforts to transform our relationship to money underway. There's already efforts to create alternative currencies, like seeds is one that's been getting some attention lately. Future Capital has future stuff around money. In October, Patty's going to do something on the attention economy. In November, there's going to be a workshop on alternative economies and monetary systems, which I think is very important because some experimentation is going to be required. But for now, let's bring it back to my relationship to money, your relationship to money, our relationship to money, because my point of view is transformation starts at home. Meaning, if we want to transform money as a society, let's start by transforming my relationship to money and your relationship to money, and then we can look at how we would do that on a larger scale. So we're going later in this workshop, we're going to actually talk to money, which will be fun. Some of you can already figure out, know me well enough to know how we're likely to do that. We're going to talk to money later in the workshop, and we will have some interesting things to say, probably to you. This is a great way of working on your relationship to money. Just as, you know, if I'm having trouble with my wife, it's probably a good idea for me to talk to her about that, right? So if you're having trouble in your relationship to money, it's a good idea to talk to money about that. We'll do that later. The reason I bring that up now is in one of my previous conversations with money, it said something that's going to form the basis of our first exercise, which we're going to do in a few minutes. And the thing it said to me is that because it's entirely artificial, because money is constructed, because we made it, and it doesn't really have an inherent existence of its own, separate from the fact that we created it and we have chosen to believe in it collectively. Because of that, because of its general lack of reality, money has an interesting feature, which is that it functions as a projection screen. So projection is the process where you take some aspect of yourself and see it in something else. And this happens like if you and a friend go to a movie and then afterwards compare notes on the movie, sometimes it can look like you were watching different movies. Like, but that's not how I interpret that at all, right? I've had arguments with my brother about my parents. I say, wow, you know, my mom was so brave when she did it. He was like, what do you mean? She was a total coward. What are you talking about? And so we have completely different relationships to these same incidents that we were both witnesses to as children, because we are projecting our own perspective, which is rooted in our own material, onto that situation. And what we're seeing is really an aspect of ourselves, not just the events themselves. The events are the screen, and then on that screen, we project our own interpretation that comes from us, not from the events, right? We humans are meaning-making machines. So we're making meaning and projecting that meaning on money. So if we want to transform our relationship with money, a good first place to start is to ask the question, what am I projecting onto money? What is it that's going on in my unconscious that when I look at money, when I deal with money, when I think about money, when I have feelings about money, I'm actually thinking and feeling about that aspect of myself, not about money, because money doesn't really exist, right? So the way we're going to do this is we're going to have a little exercise here. This is going to be a writing exercise. So Laszlo, if you're still on your bike, you're going to have to do this in your mind. Peter Paul, if you're still driving, you're going to have to do this in your mind, no crashing. What I want you to do is bust out a piece of paper or open up a document on your computer, right? Or maybe a little thing on your phone if you're one of those youngsters who has the light speed thumbs. I don't have the light speed thumbs. I'm always impressed by people who can do that. And what I want you to do is do what's called a sentence completion. And at the top, you're going to write money is ... Money is. I'm going to write it in the chat here. Oops, why can't I write in the chat? Zoom's being difficult. Okay. Heather, could you write in the chat for me? Money is ... Great. So, and then what you're going to do is you're just going to write something that money is over and over again. So maybe if I remember from, I grew up in a church, the money is the root of all evil or something like that, I might write, or money is power, or money is energy, or something, whatever comes to mind. And this is the idea here. You want to remove the censorship function, which is why I want you to do it on your piece of paper or your document, not in the chat. So people don't have to see what you say. No one but you ever gets to know everything that you wrote down. So you're going to write money is, and then just start writing stuff. And it could be just one word per line or a whole sentence or whatever. The idea is anything that comes to mind, I want you to write it down and write it down immediately with as little editing or judgment as possible, and hit enter and then write something else, and then hit enter and write something else, and hit enter and write something else. We're going to do this for like 4 minutes or so. And so we want to do it for enough time that the easy stuff gets out and some weirder stuff starts to show up. Okay. So go ahead and send, you don't have to write money is every time. It's just money is ... and then write what it is over and over and over again. And so go ahead and start doing that now. Keep writing. Don't think, just write. About 2 more minutes, keep writing. Hopefully at some point you have to run dry and pause for a second before something else comes. That's how we know we're getting close to the bottom of the barrel. Let's keep going. Another minute, don't give up now, keep writing. few more seconds. Squeeze out one or two more. Okay, and let's wrap it up. Now, if you're still going, if you're going strong, you can just keep going while I'm talking, right? You just ignore me and keep writing. Be great fun, be good for you. So hopefully that was enough time for you to write down some stuff that you didn't expect yourself to write down. If that wasn't enough time to do that, you can repeat this exercise later on your own, right? You want to go long enough until something comes out on the paper that you're like, what? That's what you really want to have happen with this exercise, because that's when you're starting to get into stuff that's unconscious. This is stuff that you didn't know you had connected with money. That's what we're looking for here, right? So what we're going to do in a moment is we're going to go in small groups. And what I want you to do in the small groups is just introduce yourself briefly. And I want you to say 2 or 3 things from your list that surprised you. And you said, wow, you know, when I wrote this and this and this, and I'm thinking, what the, right? And maybe speculate for just a minute or so about what that might be about. Why might you have that thing connected with money? And what effect might that have? Might you have that thing connected with money, right? So if I write down money is food or something, and I'm thinking, what money is food? I guess I buy food with money, but money is food. What does that mean? Oh, I know. My mom said something when I was a kid, right? See if you can just poke at a little bit and see what comes up on one of those things. So we're going to go in small groups, and the groups will be groups of 4. There might be 3 in your group if someone suddenly hangs up or their Zoom's not working or something like that. But the groups should mostly be 4. So we're going to take 10 minutes. So everybody gets, 2 minutes or so to name a few items and then maybe poke at one of them. And then a little bit of slop to say hello and get sorted out, that sort of thing. So Heather, I think we're ready, right? Okay, good. So when we go in small groups, you might go right in the small group, or you might get a screen that says, do you want to join this group or whatever? Just hit the join button, or else you're going to be sitting here in the main group with, no one to chat with. So let's go ahead, small group. So 10 minutes again, and the things. And if you could jot this down for me, Heather, in the chat. What surprised you, and what poke at one of the things that surprised you, what might it mean? That's the 2 things that we're going to look at in the small groups. Okay, great. So go ahead and let's go in the small groups, and we'll see you in 10 minutes. So welcome back. We have restarted the recording. We wanted to pause that so people who listen to the recording aren't listening to all of our sort of background chatter in the large group while you guys are in small groups. Hopefully you had a lively conversation in your small group. I'd love to hear some of what happened. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little debrief so others can get the benefit of the wisdom in your small group and vice versa. So anything that you said or you heard others say that surprised you. Now, if you're calling out what somebody else said, you might not want to get into details and use their name because they might have been comfortable sharing it in the small group, but might not want to share it in the large group. But feel free to quote anonymously. So what did you say or what did you hear that surprised and interested you? And if you did, what happened when you poked at it? What did you turn over a rock and find something under it? There's some really interesting stuff that comes out of such a simple exercise. So you can go ahead and raise your hand, and Heather will call on you and unmute you. And if you're on the phone, the way you raise your hand is by pressing *9. So raise your hand. What surprised you? What interested you? What did you write or say or find?
Perfect. Alberto, I see your hand being raised. Would you like to go and unmute yourself?
Oh, we're helping Alberto. There we go.
I forgot the name of my 2 companions. They were very intelligent. Anyhow, I was surprised because we had very quickly in agreement tongue in cheek that we need to start a charity to help very rich people because they are cursed by feeling always worrying about money. And so there is some justice in this world.
Good. Now, underneath there's some justice in this world. There might be lurking a belief about why the rich people need some sort of comeuppance that you might poke at there. Good. Great. Who else? Who else heard, said, or wrote something that you find interesting?
Christine, I know you had your, yeah.
Hello there, everybody. I found it interesting that it came down to a sentence further on as Tim kept saying, keep going, keep going. I'm like, all right, there's something else, maybe. And it came out as money is love, abundantly giving and receiving. And the poking I did was, what a different place. I thank you, COVID, because I was not here even about a year and a half ago. It was more of money. How much money do I have from a place of it's going to run out versus now it's all about an abundance of giving and receiving.
Beautiful. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Who else? And if, by the way, some folks may not know where the raise hand button is. If you hit the participant button down at the bottom, you'll see a list of participants, and underneath the list of participants, there's a raise hand button. Sorry, should have said that earlier. If you're on the phone, not a phone app, but actual phone call, I know we got at least one of those, it's *9. Looks like Andy has something to say.
Hey there, I'll riff on what Chris said. I ended up writing money is love 3 separate times because I was just not wanting to edit anything, even if it was coming up again, including the first time and the last time. And there was plenty of stuff that feels less evolved in there too, but the money is love showed up 3 times.
Cool. Who else?
Hello, this is Marina. Shall I speak now?
Please speak, Marina.
Okay, I will. So I wasn't surprised by my first few words about that money is abused and misused and worshipped and all these things, which were like negative judgments. But I was then surprised that I said blessing. It's a blessing. And then it made me realize in our conversation that there's nothing wrong with money. It really is a blessing. You know, we're fortunate. It's our relationship to it and the values that we associate with it, and therefore the emotions that it creates in us. So
good. And the emotions it creates are a direct result of the stuff we associate with it and the stuff we connect to it, et cetera, et cetera. Absolutely. Great. Thank you, Marina. Got a bunch more hands here.
Tim, yeah, we have Laszlo's hand up next.
Done biking, are we, Laszlo?
Yep. I got home safe, stopped for the list. On the way, I got to about 40 or 50, and I was still going strong when you said let's quit. So that was very interesting. And when I realized this, basically money is everything, right? So you can have like a word generator and have a great conversation about what comes up after money is, right? So it's like I took your projection screen idea to the extreme and realized that wow, money is everything.
Because you can project anything onto money, so therefore it can be anything.
Super interesting. Thanks for the exercise.
Good. Thanks, Laszlo.
Tim, we have Loda. My apologies, I'm not saying that right. Would you want to mute and share?
Yes, definitely. Thank you. My name is Lotta. I'm in Stockholm, Sweden, and this is a cashless society since a couple of years ago, and very much, I mean, and the pandemic has put the nail in the coffin for anything that the materiality. But in our group, we spoke a little bit about materiality, the goods and bads, that is shiny. I kept writing myself that is shiny, beautiful on the one hand, and then thinking about the old money, you know, how it smells in your purse, you know, old coins and bills and just taking it into your mouth. So there's a lot of contradictions in some way, which is,
Mhm.
again, our relation to money. But thanks for the exercise. Really
Excellent.
good what comes out in the end there.
Good. Thank you, Lotta.
Tim, we have Lizette as well. Lizette, thank you for raising your hand. If you want to unmute.
Yeah, thank you for giving me a turn. In our group, one of us said money is a societal conversation because everything we do is in a way connected to it. And we explored a little bit, what is the conversation that we are having with money? And kind of felt that we can give that conversation a direction.
Mhm.
And that was kind of a moment of landing, kind of a moment of all of us kind of being very moved about this aspect of being able to not be kind of victimized about what the conversation is, but have an input and project in a way into the future how we want our relationship with money to be.
I love that I had not thought of that. Now my brain is spinning with this idea of money as a form of communication, and that when we're transmitting money, we're communicating something. And then the question becomes, what am I communicating and why am I communicating that? Right. And we could have like a 5-day workshop just on that. That's amazing. I really love that.
Maybe we
Thank
should,
you.
Tim.
Maybe we should. Excellent. Thank you. Cool. I'm stashing that one for next time. Beautiful. And think about that. So then all of the rules and the principles of communication could then be applied to money. Like what's a healthy communication or non-healthy communication to the transmission of money. I love that. Let's keep going. Thank you.
Yeah, it was not me. It was in my group, but I'm not revealing the names. I
All
just
credit
don't want
to
claim.
the anonymous recipient of
Yes.
that particular projection.
I love it. Let's we have some more hands up, Tim, as well. Marco, would you like to unmute and share with us?
Yeah, I started off, quite negatively about money, like money is power, money is worrisome, money is suffering. But then continuing, as I pushed myself, the last sentence that came was money is transformation and money is trust. And I was quite surprised by those polarities in myself.
Mm-hmm.
So,
excellent.
and then in my group, we came also like money is neutral in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So was also very surprising for me.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah, that gets into the whole the money itself isn't adding anything to the conversation. We're adding it, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you, Marco.
Fabulous.
We're just going to take, we got 3 more queued up. So we're going to take these last 3 and then we're going to be done.
Perfect. Tom, you're next if you'd like to unmute. Thank
Sure.
you for raising your hand.
Sure. And just quickly, I had the realization that money is like food. The world has plenty. It's unfairly distributed, and there are healthy and gluttonous ways of using it.
I love it. And Tom and I have actually taught workshops together about fee setting because money is such a great projection screen. Those of us like Tom and I and Marco and a bunch of others who are consultants and therapists and coaches and folks who sell our services, all of our unconscious stuff about money gets woven into our fees that we charge our clients. So Tom and I have done work on that angle of money before together. Good. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
Great. John, would you like to step in, unmute?
Loving the beard, John. So
No?
can we unmute John? So John may have trouble unmuting himself.
Yep, John, I just sent, while you're working on your mute, why don't we jump to Rebecca?
Okay.
Rebecca, can you unmute yourself? And John Cordes sent you an ask to unmute.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to put something up on his screen that you may have trouble clicking on. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Hi there. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to do justice to this, and come do if you want to jump in here, but we got into a deep conversation. I'm in the seeds economy, and we were talking about money as value. And if if you are remunerated in a cryptocurrency, how is that valued? So we talked about changing how we use remuneration to be about what you need versus what you are worth or your value, and eliminating valuation versus eliminating the idea of value evaluation versus like being what you need. Anyway, so that it was pretty deep and awesome
I
conversation.
love it. There's so much to unpack in the whole idea of valuation. There's the valuation of the money, and then there's how we use money to value other things, physical things and non-physical things and activities and services. Like we could have charged for this workshop, for example, and then we would have had to value it. And then you would have to decide whether you agreed with that value or not, whether you're willing to pay it. There's so much under there. I love that. Thank you, Rebecca.
The other piece was, which was just about this idea of that cryptocurrency doesn't have a steady value. So that if you're remunerated at a point, it goes up and down minute by minute, that what your valuation is erratic, right? Your valuation personally is erratic. So that's
right, and dependent on the valuation of the currency that you're holding or that was used to remunerate you or whatever. And the same is true with fiat currencies, right? With exchange rates and all that sort of thing, and whether a currency is a floating currency or fixed currency, and what happens when you have inflation and all this other kind of stuff. So I love it. That's great. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Camdu. John, unfortunately, we can't unmute you. We can only invite you to unmute yourself. And I understand that may be a problem. So if
are you talking to me?
Yeah. There we are. Okay, good. You're using the phone. Go for it.
Oh, I didn't have my hand up, so I don't know why you were talking to me.
Oh, well, somehow, see, you're using phone and video, and your video self has its hand up. So I think some unconscious part of you wanted to speak.
I'm not using. I'm on my landline.
Okay, then someone renamed someone else's video to John Cordes. And whoever that is would like to speak.
Whoever that masked man is.
That's why I was saying I loved your beard, John. I haven't seen you with this big beard before, but apparently that's because it's not you.
That's not me.
Okay.
I guess
the mystery. Oh, there he is. Who are you? You're not John.
He is John, actually, but
JD, he invited.
Oh, okay. I see. He's using your link. All right. Mystery solved. So not John Cordes. Yes. What did you want to say?
My only commentary and brief commentary is that when you're pricing your services, since you brought that up, we were having a conversation in our group, and I thought it was very interesting. Are you focusing inward or are you focusing outward in that projection? Because if you're focusing inward, you're focusing into self-worth, and you're tying your self-worth to your prices. If you're focusing outward, you're focusing on purpose, you're focusing on your client. And that can really determine, a very different pricing.
I love that. And let me add something to that, because this is what Tom and I used to teach, is that even when you think you're focusing outward on the value you're providing to your clients, you are simultaneously, unconsciously focusing inward on your self-worth. And it's almost impossible to turn that feature off. Cool. Excellent. Thank you, John.
Guys.
And last one, not John. What did you want to say?
Well, what occurred to me was how important it is for us to deal with our own beliefs about money, so that when we can clear that, it can spread out to the collective unconscious and we can actually do work.
Absolutely. And that's where we're going next. Thank you for the segue. And what is your real name, by the way? I'm not entirely comfortable calling you
JD.
Not John. JD. All right, good.
I'm JD Starving.
Excellent. Thank you, JD. Thank you for that. And we're going to now we're going to take a different angle and poke in a different way at our collective relationship and individual relationship with money. And what JD just said is that which I think is very useful and something we should bear in mind, is if I work on my relationship with money, that has an effect on the collective. If you believe Carl Jung and the idea of the collective unconscious, we're all connected. Any progress I make is a little dropper in the ocean of contributing to the progress we make in our relationship to money. So we're not just helping the people here on the call today, we are helping everybody by doing what we're doing today. Good. Next exercise. Thank you for that. I love the way you guys took that exercise on, and some really cool stuff came out of that I'm logging in my brain for the next time I do something like this. I'm going to be saying, in the last workshop, this really cool stuff happened. Let me tell you what they said. And that'll prompt them to go even further. It'll be beautiful. All right, cool. So now we're going to do a different exercise, which is going to be familiar to those of you who are here from the True Purpose Institute or have done the True Purpose process, which is something called active imagination. Active imagination is something that Carl Jung created for communicating with his own unconscious and the collective unconscious. And for the first time, I guess it was maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago, his descendants published something called the Red Book, which the Jungian therapists have been all hot and bothered about for decades, wanting access to, which was Carl Jung's personal journal, where he wrote out his own dialogues with his own unconscious and different things that he was communicating with in his unconscious and the collective unconscious. So you can use this exercise to communicate with just about everything or anything. And the True Purpose Institute, we use it for communicating with different parts of the psyche and that are kind of getting in the way of manifesting your goals and purpose. We also use it for communicating with aspects of self that could tell you what your purpose is, which is a fun exercise to do. But because we're dealing with money today, we're going to talk to money. So the way this works is you do this in writing. Same thing, you can use the same piece of paper or the same document you were doing the money is exercise in before. And what you're going to do instead is you're going to write your name and then a question, and then you're going to write money, and then you're going to write the answer. And so it winds up looking like an SMS chat or a screenplay where there's a name in front of every line. So if I were doing it, I would write Tim : hi, money, how are you today? Money : I'm doing great, how are you, Tim? Tim : well, I have some questions for you. Money : sure, what you got? Shoot, right? And so you just do this writing. It works for almost anybody immediately. The one thing you may notice is you're telling yourself while you're doing it that you're making it up and it's not real, which is fine. That's a normal thought to have. Just ignore it and keep writing. You can worry later about whether it was real or not. Now, what's happening is you're communicating with something, whether it's actually running or not is an interesting metaphysical question, but we're not worried about that because whatever communication you have will reveal stuff about your relationship with money and our relationship with money, whether or not it was actually money talking back at you or not, kind of doesn't matter, right? You're going to get at the material either way. So some questions that I came up with, which I will put in the chat, and I added one this morning. I just couldn't help myself. None of you will be surprised when you see it. Let's see if I can paste this in here. Oh yeah, there we go. So remember, we're talking with money, so we wouldn't say, how can I improve my relationship with money? We would say, how can I improve my relationship with you? Money, right? That's an assumption on my part that you'd like a better relationship with money. If you don't want one, that's fine. You don't have to ask that question. You could ask, how do I make my relationship with you worse, if that's your goal? Don't want to, box you in, do whatever you want. But on the assumption that you would like to improve your relationship with money, how can I improve my relationship with you, money, would be a question you could ask. Another question, how can society improve its relationship with you? This is the collective version of the same conversation, which may or may not have the same answer. We'll see. And then the one I couldn't help myself and added this morning, just because I'm weak, is what is the higher purpose of money? And this is something I've been on about for a long time, which I think would be a useful thing to know in the larger project of improving and enhancing and evolving humanity's relationship with money. I think knowing the higher purpose of money would probably help with that and would help with what I said at the beginning about getting a vision for how we could have a better relationship with money. That purpose information could be useful. Could be possible to do without it, but I think it would make it easier if we had that. So those are 3 questions I'm recommending. You can ask whatever you want. This one, we're going to take a little more time. We're going to take like 9 minutes to do this. So you have enough time to have a little bit of a back and forth. And that's not that much time unless you're a very fast typer or writer. So you may want to continue this conversation later. So we'll get as far as we get in 9 minutes. We'll do a little debrief and then we'll wrap. So go ahead. Remember your name, question, money, answer. Your name, question, money, answer. And feel free to ask questions that I didn't write here. These are just to get the conversation started. 9 minutes, begin. Used about half your time, a few minutes left. Another minute, wrap things up. Okay, and we're going to leave it there for now. Now, as before, if you're having a really lively chat with money and you don't want to stop, you can keep writing, right? I can't stop you. Just keep having your conversation and ignore my voice. That would be perfectly fine. So time is short. We've got a little less than 10 minutes to go in our little workshop today. So we're only going to have time to take a few live shares. So what I encourage you to do is if there was anything particularly interesting that transpired between you and money in this conversation, you can just pick out a few words or a sentence from it that really stood out to you, and you can just put it in the chat so others can see it. And that way, a lot more sharing will happen than just from calling on a few people, which we're about to do in a moment. And if you would prefer to say what you experienced out loud, go ahead and raise your hand. Again, the raise hand button is underneath the list of participants. You have to hit the participants button down at the bottom. Underneath the list of participants is the raised hand button. And there's 2 people on the phone. You can use *9 if you're on the phone, you want to share. We're only going to have time to take just a few shares. Looks like Marina has something to say.
Hi, Tim.
Hey.
So I just shoot very quickly. So when I said to Money, how are you? Money said, I'm tired and I'm upset when I'm not appreciated, used, or shared. And then when I said, so what is your purpose? And it said, I'm meant to be used and shared and respected. I'm not meant to be possessed, abused, hidden, and kept secret. Okay, which reminds
Love
me
it.
of the banking industry.
Mhm.
Yes, I'll just go there. Oh, and it
Excellent.
did say something about fair and harmony and balance and help.
Beautiful. Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you, Marina. Let's hear from a couple more.
Gailey, do you want to unmute yourself and share? Gail?
There we go.
Hi. Yeah, I asked about the higher purpose of money and got the response that I teach kindness and generosity and magnify intention. On the flip side, I allow you to push up against greed, hypocrisy, and selfishness to create a better world.
Awesome. Those of you who did get a response about the higher purpose of money, I would, as a personal favor, appreciate it if you would paste that into the chat. Please paste that, Gail, because I will keep that information. And when we eventually have a project about identifying the higher purpose of money for the sake of society, I will use that information. So
Excellent.
please put it in there. And then Heather or
happy to
Patty, if
do
you
that.
would send me the chat when we're done, that would be very helpful. So if you've got higher purpose information about money, put it in the chat right now. And let's call on one more, and then we're going to need to wrap things up.
Sure.
Actually, it looks like we got two more here. We'll do Laszlo and Maya, and then we'll call it there.
Yeah, Maya, do you wanna go first? You wanna unmute?
Sure, Heather, thanks. So I want to thank you for this exercise, Tim, because I found it very intense, and it was almost like I could hear, money talking. It was really like an ongoing dialogue, and even when you said time is up, I really didn't want to stop. So it was just, very. I loved the whole process. So mine was about how can we bring about equality. And so the answers were in terms of, making men more conscious about its use, revisiting their ethics, morals, encouraging higher level thinking. And Bunny also said, it is going to take time. Each one is going to work at their own pace. And then suddenly there was this question of, but, can we live with both equality and inequality? And then Money says yes, because you when you live with polarities, one teaches you the value of the other, and that was something that came up, and also that there are choices to be made as human beings, and with choices there are consequences. So this is what came up for me. Thank you very much.
Maya, thank you so much for sharing. Laszlo, do you want to unmute and share?
Yeah, thank you. Wow, went super deep in me. Basically, Money said, I am you. That's how we started the conversation, and you treat me bad because you were treated bad. So if you treat yourself better, then your relationship with money will improve. And I was like, okay, that's good, but how do we do that? And basically it went to mother's milk, and like the rhythm that I didn't get, and then money and like mother's milk is there when the baby wants it, but the baby has to want it for it to be there. So this whole rhythm of nursing as like a spiraling exercise came through, and I'm like, amazing.
It's awesome.
So, wow, thanks, Tim.
Excellent. I love that metaphor. There's another one I'm logging for next time. Good. So you guys can see all of the great wisdom that came out of this from these two very, very, very simple exercises. And really, we only asked 4 questions and we got all this great stuff. And some of you are saying, oh, I wish I had more time. Great. Put an appointment in your calendar right now when you're going to put this, when you're going to go continue this on your own, right? Don't stop here, because there's all sorts of value that can be unpacked for you personally, right? There's money to be made in improving your relationship to money. This is an important exercise for your financial health and well-being. And there's transformation to be had from improving your relationship to money for you and for everybody. So by all means, plagiarize the ideas you've heard in this workshop, I'm going to, and bring them up when people are talking about money and say, yeah, geez, I wonder if that might be a projection because money is kind of artificial. Or, you know, I heard this interesting metaphor about nursing when I was on this workshop about money last month. There's all sorts of things you can do to help others with what came out of this. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. And I'm going to turn things over to Heather to wrap us up and take us home.
Tim, thank you so much. And thank you all for the amazingly juicy conversation today. And I'm excited. This is, even though this is the end of today's call, this is the beginning of the conversation. So I'm excited to announce August 11th's program. Like Tim said, mark your calendars, August 11th at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. The workshop is going to be, You're Here for a Reason. And that's with Lawrence Ford, our founder here, Lawrence Ford, will be hosting it. It's super amazing, cool workshop. We do it for corporations. Yours truly over here will help facilitate that workshop. I'm going to put in chat a link, which will be, we'll have a lot of fun, super amazing. And Steve, I'm going to pass it right over to you to tell everyone a little bit about July's workshop.
Yeah, so mark your calendars for July 14th. Actually, it won't be a workshop. It'll be what we're calling, we do these every other month. Every other month is a workshop similar to the format today. And every other month in between, we do what we call future capital conversations. The conversation in July, on July 14th, is going to focus on the debate, the greenwashing debate. And it has to do with this. Some of you may be familiar with the terminology sustainable, responsible impact investing, or ESG, which is an acronym for environment, social governance, and the trillions of dollars that are flowing into that space and that have been now. And the number of companies, both investment companies as well as public companies looking for investment capital, that are now talking the talk, but not necessarily walking the walk. So we're gonna talk about that and unpack that and help you understand some of the intricacies and perhaps how to make better investment decisions as a part of the process. So that's on July 14th. Heather, where do we want to go next here?
I love that question. I'm going to pass it right over to Lawrence Ford to help close us today.
Excellent.
Lawrence?
We have an internal joke, and for those of you who've been around our family for a while, you guys get it. I say I'll be brief and everybody laughs. But I see this was set up brilliantly because I've got 30 seconds left, or negative 30 seconds. So what I would like to say to everybody is, again, thank you for your attention, for coming. You see, this work that we do here is true systems-based work, right? I mean, this is like our own relationship internally and subconsciously with our relationship with this thing we call money is the beginning of everything. And without that work, the rest are just Band-Aids. So Tim, thank you for your brilliance. Thank you for taking us through this workshop and sharing your gifts with us. I know everybody was engaged and happy and doing your own work. Take yourself with you when you go from this meeting. And what I mean by that, that's an ancient shamanic term in some areas where you truly are bringing yourself conscious through your steps as you go forward, and be aware of what's driving you in your subconscious and your conscious. And thank you everybody for being part of this. We will see you soon. And for everything that I know all of you do already to make the world a better place, blowing blessings to all of you. And thank you so much.
Thanks everybody for participating so fully. Yay.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for
Bye,
hosting.
everyone.
Thank you, Ford.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Tim.
Tim.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Bye.
you all.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.